Greetings, everybody! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, the setting for the Pathfinder role-playing game system? I hope you are, because we're going to be visiting another country in Tian Xia today. We're going to be heading to that continent, visiting the country, learning about its people, and maybe surviving whatever going on there. Don't worry, though, as your host and guide here, Tian Xia and Dracovin, I will be able to gate you in there and protect you to the best of my ability. Just, stay close. But, do remember to give a tip here, like, subscribe, ring the bell over on YouTube, and let me know what you think about this nation. Kaoling. Are you ready? Grab my hand. The gate is open. We're traveling to Golarion once more, to Tian Xia, to Kaoling. Kaoling's not a very safe place necessarily, unless you're a hobgoblin, and some of you out there might be hobgoblins. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it. But, if not, well, I'll do the best I can. I can only protect you so much if you stay close by. What do you know about Kaoling? What can we learn about Kaoling? Well, the Dragon Empire's primer and the Dragon Empire's Gazetteer from first edition of Weird Place. But definitely speaking, if you want the most up-to-date version of it, the World Guide from second edition, Tian Xia World Guide. Really great source. My favorite one for this entire video that I'm doing as information. Highly recommend it if you definitely want to get a book source. Kaoling! Well, it's a hobgoblin nation. Basically, after the fall of the Imperial Long Law, they managed to take it over. Yeah. Basically, hobgoblins in charge, and everybody else is a servant class. Servant class is the nice way of saying it. They're not quite a full, you're enslaved class, but they're not far from it kind of thing. They are second-class citizens, not even real citizens. They are servants, and you are treated pretty terribly, generally speaking. But you are not treated the worst, and you're technically not owned by anybody, kind of by the state in a lot of ways. It's a mess. We'll talk about it all, but yeah. From their capital of Dracovin, the warlord Sung Cha Kavangaki rules over it, in charge of the military council known as the Council of Nine. And, yeah, that's Kaoling. And if you want some good weapons, armor, kind of things like that, there's some pretty big exports from there. Mercenaries, too. But there are some other materials that you can get there. And it's not a place that's without religion. And yes, you can find Ettins, giants, ogres, humans, Saracens, and elves there, too. Just hobgoblins are in charge. Make sure you're Let's talk history of this place, because that's the very thing. And its origin begins with the fall of Langlois, basically in 7106 IC. They were a threat during Langlois' rule. Basically, these hobgoblins of northern Tian. And when they finally fell, they searched for it and destroyed 6 of the squabbling successor states that had fragmented from its former superpower. And in 7011 and 10, their nation was formed. Straight there, quickly and dirty. That's the quick and dirty of the entire thing. The hobgoblins were not part of Langlois. They were kind of a dangerous neighbor. Basically, the people of Tian Xia view this as aggressive rise to power, basically the beginning of an evil empire. And the battles that they formed they call the War of the Widowmakers. Not what they call it. We'll talk about that, but basically, the reason behind this is the deadly tactics they use. They took advantage of nature. Stories spread about how they took advantage of weaker nations. Some are exaggerated, some are true. Their army was arguably brutal, and historians and scholars don't overlook that there was a lot of civil war and strife in the wake of Langlois' collapse. So, yeah, they were a power that was in that area. They went to battle with these other nations in their region. They were on the border of that area. Basically, they hadn't been conquered by Langlois, but could be considered if you had just separated them out. You had 6 nations conquered by Langlois that were part of it, and them that were on the border there. A nation that really wasn't a nation, that were just a people there. So when it became down to 6 battling factions, it was really 7 battling factions, and they won. They just happened to be victorious in a very public and bloody fashion. And their victory came from unity. Their enemies were squabbling over boundaries and territories and didn't focus on infrastructure or defense. Their warlords were led by Miyoshi Soda, who had speedy assaults that obliterated the foe's defenses before the enemies could mobilize. It was a few short months before Kaoling's borders were kind of declared, and the founding of Dirkshan, the capital. Miyoshi Soda had a philosophy that's become ingrained in Kaoling's culture, based on outsmarting opponent without engaging in many battles. You must fight to basically, one must fight fight. If one must fight, you must know how to minimize casualties. His strategies focused on destroying defenses and morale rather than pointless massacres. Soda timed well-planned attacks on strategic military buildings, killed prominent leaders, causing armies to collapse. If soldiers continued to fight back, they were put to death. If you laid down your weapons and became workers for the kingdom of Kaoling, he promised and intended to keep, basically, that you would live. And he did so successfully by doing this. Basically, you surrender, you can become a worker here. Yeah. This philosophy has become ingrained in developing Kaoling. His guiding laws are what basically do it, his guiding philosophy. It became the politics and the law. He emphasized that he wanted the government to create policies to minimize casualties and prevent conflict among Hobgoblins. So now in charge is Sucha Kavangaki, who's basically the spirit of Shoda's philosophy and the way that he governs it. Justice is swift, and, people overcome obstacles without committing crimes, and there's not a lot of infighting amongst the Hobgoblins. But the cruelty is an exaggeration, unfortunately. Those who survived the War of the Widowmakers had a choice. You could stay and work for them, building a new empire, or have an honorable death. Many people believing they would be liberated decided to stay and offered their service to the new governments, and the cities were built on their backs. And the only way to leave was to escape or die. And conditions have not been kind to laborers. And to this day, the only way for them or their descendants to leave is to be given an honorable death, or somehow manage to escape. Yeah, Kaoling. Let's look at the nation of Kaoling. It's a great expanse of flatlands, extends through most of the kingdom, a boon for basically the cavalry they use to support their borders. There are small cities, military outposts. The open plains have grasslands, primarily treeless and rarely change elevation. So there's farms, livestock that flourish in the excess space. The landscape symbolizes possibilities and freedoms in their new power. They also border the Sea of Eels. It has a lot of fishing villages there, and funded navy towns to help protect the fisheries from the titular giant eels. The capital sits on the coast, and despite its name, the body of water is pretty shallow, so a lot of danger does rise to the surface. It's also a trade route. But Kaoling does not have the most robust trade relationship with its neighbors, so instead conducts business with trading companies. Basically, trading companies are willing to trade with Kaoling because, hey, they know the risks and are willing to take them. The other countries nearby, not so much. The west coast are wild marshlands that feed off of the river plains, the water plains. Not super dangerous, but overgrown. It's untamed, so it's a natural defense against invaders. But, if you're just a band of travelers, it's not difficult to travel. But a large army? Yeah, not really great. There's a lot of ruins from the successor states that Miyoshi Soda destroyed. And some of these are outposts or town nows, others are just still ruined. Also, there are rumors of connections to the Darklands. They're connected with the Darklands. So there's sometimes you might find Kaolin soldiers just guarding nothing. That's a good look at the nation overall. Let's talk about Kaolin's cities. We'll start with its capital city, of course, Dirtrag, and talk about a couple of other smaller places that are important too. So, the capital, it's utilitarianism, military prowess, reinforced stone walls, plethora of watchtowers. There's 9 gates into the city that represent the Council of 9. And once inside, there's a wide moat that acts as a canal system and transports goods and people along the districts. It has very little crime. The economy is prime for trade due to location on the Sea of Eels. It's built with gray stone, but people place colored lanterns, paintings, have some decor. And you will see black crowds rising in the sky as artisans are busy at work making weapons for the kingdom. There's also the Dirtshard Castle, which is the city center. The palace is surrounded by 5 towers that are capped with red groups. And the Pagoda of 9 is near the castle where the ruling council meets. Other important places just to mention is the grave of Miyoshi Soda. Hey, it's the grave of the great leader there. Interred there with statues of his 4 times in life, child, young war leader, warlord of Kaoling, and old advisor. In the crypt are his bones, the bones of his Council of 9. People that take pilgrimages to there. It's an honor to be put as card as a guard or a carer of it. Another major city to mention is Kintong, which is kind of interesting. It's run by one of the members of the council. Talk about them. It's Sun Zen. But the city offers basically better treatment for non-Hobgoblin people. If you are non-Hobgoblin living in Kaoling, you want to be in Quinton. They don't receive rights the way that they'll be recognized by the government, but they have a ranking system that means you can have upward mobility. And basically, you can even get into some of the ruling councils. You, as a non-Hobgoblin, can have your opinions heard. You're maybe not the top, the real rulers of it, but there's little, lower government areas you can get into in this city. There is upward mobility here. It's not great. It's better. You're not an oppressed class anymore as much. And the Council of 9 basically thinks this place is dangerous for tradition and needs reform. But because a member of the council is the ruler of it, it would be seen as weakness to go in and interfere at all. So, yeah. It's still got a lot of the Greystone as the capital, but it's got some wood architecture, gives it an earthy feel. It's surrounded by farms with livestock, military schools, a wide variety of subjects. We do know the names of some of the other cities, we can importantly note. There's Gajang, Homgul Hills, Heolosha, I'm probably butchering some of these, so sorry, and Jolly. So those are 4 of the other cities. We don't know a lot about them, but they are other relative different sized cities. They're not as big as the, of course, capital and even Quelling is a city. Quinton. Alright. Let's talk about who's in charge. And of course we have Songcha Kavaki here. So, we'll take a step back here, and let's talk about the Council of 9. Basically, when Shoda took over the country, he created the Council of 9. It was comprised of the generals who participated in the War of the Widowmakers. He basically first planned to take the solo mantle of Emperor. That was his original thoughts. But he basically decided that might cause controversy among his allies. So what he did is, he's like, well, look, I want to kind of be in charge, but I can't, basically have my allies left out. They're going to be kind of unhappy about that, and I don't want dissent. So he elevated his closest allies to this power of this council, and became the figurehead of the council. And he kept his near complete control of the nation, and avoided political enemies within his rule. And after this founding, he soon took his generals, settled the seat of government in his new capital. So the government has allowed for 8 military generals to vote the most significant decisions, Emperor serving as tyrant. Shoda did ensure that only the most prominent choices ever reached the council, and basically each of the generals was distracted with their own responsibilities in the nation. So it's like, oh, you 8, keep with your things, I'll make the normal choices. When something big comes up, we'll all come together and make the big choices. But, the normal day-to-day stuff, I got my job, you got all your jobs, boom. Warlord Sung Cha Kavangaki basically has been in that position. Current warlord, in charge, in his things, and had pretty unanimous support of the council until recently. So, he's got a partner on the council, Fei Hong, a general, who is basically his mouthpiece in day-to-day manners, gathers allies, helps to guarantee the vote goes in his way. This general is at his side, they're thick as thieves. But then we have to talk about the new general on the block who came in a few years ago, Sun Zhen. Did I mention Sun Zhen? They're an expert on arcane affairs. Most Kaoling Hobgoblins distrust magic, but the power of Sun Zhen's spells as a magus are undeniable and an asset to the military. So sort of like there is a distrust of arcane magic especially, but this powerful arcane user is there at your side doing some awesome things. They gotta respect it. Kavangaki also wanted Zen there because Zen has a resistance to expansionism. Basically, to stop stymie the influence of his powerful rival, Himiko Naichi, who's also on the council. Basically, expansion breeds a lot of problems, and they're not at this point in time where expansion is practical. So, Kavangaki doesn't want to, push heavy expansion now, invading your neighbors and stuff like that. Rival does. So getting someone who's very anti-expansion was great. But Zen began pursuing their goal of a path to citizenship for non-hobgoblins, citing that Shota's philosophy and providing prisoners of war with more rights creates a more productive society. These people have been in their society for a long time and were technically prisoners of war to begin with. But giving them a path for citizenship under Zen's idea is very Shota's philosophy and might make a better nation. Zen has managed to convince General Dai Jai to their point of view, prompting Dai Jai to write a plan to provide better conditions and an education system to achieve citizenship. The council has been in constant debate. Many members believing that they can make concessions to non-hobgoblins, but Sun Zen's extent is a little too much. So yeah. Fei Hong dislikes this direction the council is taking, is looking for permanent solutions to solve the problem. Hey, So now we have to turn to the Faith of the Black Daimyo, one of the religious orders here, with General Susumu. Oh, General Susumu, the Faith of the Black Daimyo, in their capital, their big place, their palace within the capital, run by Kirinino Su-chan, who has a very large non-military force that is loyal to the leadership and war leader. He wants a place in the Council of Nine, and there are plans already for him to eventually join. There's also the other major religion, with Genji Yamata, who is a high priest of Yezin, who's basically in charge of public executions, working out of the Ministry of Blood in the capital, and taking care of executions all throughout Kaoling. The other major figure to mention here is one that's not from this nation, but General Aranzeri from Oprek. Because Oprek, the nation of hobgoblins, in, all the way over in Avastin, the continent where the Inner Sea is. Avastin. Avistan. I always say it wrong. It's Avistan. That nation is connected to the Onyx Citadel, like a demi-plane, hidden in the Oprah. She basically is given a magical onyx that allows the Council of Nine to also arrive there. She has interest in Kaoling, its philosophy, all these things, and the Council has basically have a tentative treaty with her. She's interested in resources, weaponization of kaiju, and, her connections allows for more expansion possible. Some generals have also even talked about recruiting her to the Kaoling flag, basically turning her nation to another member of Kaoling, uniting with her. But Kavangaki finds her motivations and methods a little unfavorable. But again, it's this kind of thing is, they can't be hostile to the Iron Fang Legion. So, they've been just trying to make political moves against her. So it's kind of like weird juxtaposition between the two nations that's formed here that'll be probably pretty important for both Kaoling and Oprak in the future. but you also have this kind of like rising kind of side of things in the council of saying like, hey, we definitely should treat our other non-hobgoblins better because it's an issue. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens because, hey, something happened with Cheliax that, after they had a bunch of rebellions, they, abolished slavery because they were like, hey, oh yeah, we don't want another rebellion. That's really the only reason they did it, not out of the goodness of their heart in Cheliax, but, I feel like there's some connections to philosophy that they believe in, that they can have some more charity. It's hobgoblin. It's an interesting philosophy that they're going for in Kaoling, the rulers. Let's talk about the people of Kaoling, though, to finish up today. The culture, the people that are there. We do kind of have to talk in two sides. The hobgoblin and non-hobgoblin. When it comes to the hobgoblin people, their days are filled with work. They get up in the morning, eat something easy, something that they don't have to spend time cooking with. And there's after a little bit of meditation and exercise. The meditation kind of like control your emotions. The exercise to get the blood flowing for your physical activity and be ready for productivity. If you're a noble house, you might have non-hobgoblin servants prepare breakfast. And then you spend your day. Maybe if you need a little bit of a quick meal sometime in there, that's the only break you get, Only if you need to concentrate, It's like, your blood sugar's running low. You need a little bit of something to keep going. Then at dusk, go to the bathhouse, go out to a restaurant or tavern, have basically a big old meal, lots of carbs, vegetables, meat. Don't usually consume some alcohol. Basically have a little bit of entertainment and get ready to rest for the next day. You'll take off days for religious holidays, health and emergency reasons, but otherwise, you're working. Those are the work hours. If you visit the nation at any time, come during when it's either from sunup to sunset, because otherwise, they're going to be insulted that you're trying to get them to work outside of hours. And make sure you're either a hobgoblin or you speak goblin, or they're also not going to be happy with you. There's also a lot of competitive matches that happen there, usually during evenings, a lot of unofficial tournaments during cold seasons. It's cards and dice. In warmer times, archery, marksmanship, brawling, weapons, sparring are all big parts, especially with households and dojos. And of course, performances of their sword dancing. They're sponsored by the government. And teachings of Moyashi Soda. You always get them. If you're a non-hobgoblin, it's very different. You generally get up and have a reverse schedule of hobgoblins, sleeping during the day, staying up at night to tend to the needs of the citizens. Farmer is up before sunrise and works until the job is done, regardless of how much light there is. Cooks work at the whim of the celebrations and diets. If there's a tournament, a blacksmith may receive a stern wake-up call to get a set of armor at last minute. The stable master might be interrupted if the general wants to go for a last-minute ride. Basically, you work without vocal complaint. Most workers have a scowl on their face due to their circumstances. Smiles aren't required, but vocal complaints will be punished. Yep. And, of course, there's the two deities that they pay their respects to. Susumu and Yaizing. If you're devout, you take some time today to watch, especially if you'll take some time out to watch the executions of the priests of Yaizing. That happened at the whims of the Hobgoblin leadership. So, there's a nice execution. I'm a devout of Yaizing. I'll head over there and enjoy the great executions. Now, there are some holidays, which are interesting here. They're 3-day holidays. Why are they 3-day? Because they break them apart in an interesting way. Split into 3 groups. One group works each of the days. So the jobs are still getting done. So you'll have a third of people working of each of these days, so the other 2 groups can take breaks. So, I'm middle work day, so I get the first day off and the last day off, or I'm first work day, I get the other 2 days off, or I'm last work day. During that time, there's brawling matches, board games, game of intelligence, dancing performances, food, all these times during celebration. These big celebrations are things like the solstices, summer and winter solstices. Once a year they come together to commemorate the founding, the reenactment of the War of the Widowmakers. They have hobgoblin nations against non-hobgoblin citizens versus hobgoblin citizens, where they attack them, There's magic, large explosion, deadly combat, and there can be accidental deaths of non-Hobgoblin citizens during the Passion or the reenactment. And if you get the honor of playing Moyoshi Soda, you can get some, basically, lifelong praise for yourself and your family. Basically, students in the teachings, 9 months ahead of time, get ready for a competition to become it. They train, after that competition, they train religiously, mentally, and physically to prepare for the role. And if you do a really good job, you can get a position in the army, the political leadership, or even academic of your choice. Because all three things are very important. It's if I win a really great position, I get my chance to play Moyashi Soda and the thing. I do a really great job this year. Maybe that position in the military, that position in the politics or in the bureaucracy, or the position over at the academy I would teach. Lunar New Year is also celebrated, but work doesn't stop during that. But they have basically special drinks and cakes in honor of them. There has been some acknowledgement that the non-Hobgoblins, its content could go a long way in recent years. So, in recent years, there's basically been a day off for non-Hobgoblins. Yay! You get to have food, drink, walk the streets, enjoy some of the theater. Yay! And the first weekend of the month has a big tournament held by the army. Basically, people get to show off their skill in archery, horseback riding, strategy board games, fighting tournaments with two types, one-on-one, both magical and physical, and team-based combat. The team-based combat can be fight to the death, but there are basically medics, clerics, and healers on the sideline, so if you surrender or incapacitated, they'll look after you. But it's one of those things is, if you're getting in that 4-on-4 fight in the later rounds, not in the qualifiers, you gotta be ready to put your life on the line. Nothing else to celebrate. Birthdays, anniversaries, monumental events, or just dates in the calendar. So, it's a rigid, tireless work ethic, and productivity is important. And that is an important thing about the people of Kaoling. As long as you're productive and talented and skilled, you'll be honored, and if you are none of those things, you're just not going to be great in life. And this is for physical labor, this is for intellectuals too. There's a lot of intellectuals that wrote very extensive papers and published them in Kaoling and haven't gone anywhere. Especially ones on war tactics and leaderships based on the teachings of Moyashi Shoda. And those teachings are precious. Getting them outside of there, basically, is difficult. Other fields like natural science and practical use of magic are there. Basically, there's general disgust towards magic, but those who practice the art of magic are lauded for their sacrifice they make for the good of country to understand and use it. It's like, you're using magic, but you've taken on this burden because this magic can be useful to us. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. There's a strict hierarchy. Workers' responsibility roles are strictly laid out and clearly laid out. You're assigned tasks with supervisors that delegate them based on difficulty. And any work that's not given to hobgoblins goes to the non-hobgoblin population. All workers, regardless of hobgoblin or non-hobgoblin, get a uniform. And they have a stone on your cuff that determines where you are on it. Basically, specific stones. If you're a leader, you get a precious stone on your cuff. If you are a normal hobgoblin worker, semi-precious stone. And non-hobgoblins have small bits of rock. Basically, same uniform for everybody. Whether you're a leader, a worker, non-hobgoblin, same uniform. But that stone determines it shows where you are. And basically, these are the rankings in Kaoling. Once the workday is done, though, workers switch out of their uniform into vibrant and unique clothing. Adorned jewelry, plethora of colors, your individual cuts and style, element of comfort and practicality, though. If you can't move comfortably within it, in your culling, it's discarded for something more fitting. The military, though, has their heavy armors, which also have their decorations, but the decorations are oftentimes in preference of generals. If you're going to have an armor and your general likes ceremonial bronze masks, that's what you're wearing. Help intimidate your enemy. Education is also pretty critical. You begin at the age of 5 and continue to 16 for AHA. You get to know Miyashi Soda's teachings early on and also emphasize literature, history, military, and performance in those very high on. But also art is important. Painting, ceramics, basic architecture, dance. Their dance style, which has multicolored ribbons attached to their bodies and wielding a sword, is a major art that they've developed there. The ribbon color represents emotions, translation from rigid to fluid movement, representing balance. This could be with or without music, oftentimes telling a wordless story. Most common represent teachings of early military heroes and heavy Kaoling nationalism. It's also part of the military education, learning that when to be strict and when to be relaxed. So their sword dancing, very big on them. Now, they also know the War of the Widowmaker as War of Redemption, because the way they looked at it, they've been known as simple bandits and raiders before then, and they basically used the creation of a nation to redeem their name. Yeah, that's the way the Hobgoblins look at it. You saw us as bandits, raiders. When we battled together, formed this nation, we redeemed ourselves. And then, of course, there's the import of weapons, armor, siege equipment, mercenaries that are pretty big. There is some, livestock and food. The country is fairly self-sufficient, but alchemical potions and elixirs are things they like to purchase and bring in. And of course, they aren't particularly religious, but you do have a couple of... You do have the moral code, the code, I shouldn't say moral, well, it is a moral code, of Miyashi Soda that you follow. And there is some religions that are there. So, yep. But, again, General Susumu, the Black Daimyo, and Ye Xing are the two big religions that you may find yourself getting into if you're getting into religion in the country. But there you go. There's Kaoling in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed joining me about it and learning about it. It's a fascinating nation because it shows a nation of Hobgoblins that's a lot more developed than Oprek. And Oprek has had a much different path in Aveston, but certainly in TNZ, Kaoling has a long history since the Successor States. That's pretty long, and has kind of carved out its own place. But it's seeing its growing pains and learning its own existence. It's one of those things that it was built first for Hobgoblins on the backs of other people's land. And it shows in that, too. But you're seeing that it is a nation that is evolving, too. Whether or not the non-Hobgoblins will find a place for themselves as little more than, honestly, state servants/slaves, it's a hard thing to say. It's a difficult position to be in. The nation itself is one that's built upon a very strict code. And understanding that code is how it works. So, what will become of Kaoling? Will it continue to be how it is? Will it evolve and change? Who knows? It might take hundreds of years before any major change happens. But we're seeing the influence and change kind of happening in Kintong, and perhaps that would be a sign to other places in the nation of a different way of doing things that works better. Maybe they'll see that non-goblins can be just as regimented and visioned as the rest of them if given the chance. A more united nation. Again, it's something to see. I'd be interested to see stories of it evolving its relation with Oprek and that kind of thing. We'll see if we get more in the future. I hope you enjoyed diving into today and learning about this nation, which a lot of other people see as a threat. And currently, I would say no. With its current leader, it's not a threat to other nations. The expansion isn't being kept down. Doesn't mean there's plenty of people there that don't want to expand. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today. If you want to see more of my stuff, remember to check out my schedule. That's up on my social medias. That tells you when I'm live over on Twitch, either doing gaming or tabletop stuff. When I upload stuff over on YouTube, that's my Discord, Blue Sky, Twitter/X, and my YouTube community page. The other social media gives updates, other than the YouTube one, gives updates on life schedule, changes in schedule, things like tactics sometimes, or other various little like chats and membership things. Great place to keep in contact. Hey, if you have thoughts about Kaoling, let me know in the comments below. When you do those things I said earlier, like, subscribing, and ring the bell. That's a great way to support the channel. Check it out. TTRPG role-playing stuff, discussing tabletop on Saturday 6, as I said. And I think that's it for today. So I'm going to say, until the next time we dive into Golarion, another nation, anywhere else in the Pathfinder world, or another TTRPG, or other tabletop-related stuff, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.